Be sure to watch Sonic the Hedgehog and Analytical Diatribe. The link is located in the description. Sonic the Hedgehog is a franchise about a blue hedgehog who runs fast and battles against an evil scientist named Dr. Robotnik, who encapsulates animals inside of robots called badniks. Sonic's best friend is a two-tailed fox named Miles Prower, nicknamed Tails, who somehow flies by spinning his two tails around. They also battle against an echidna with sharp knuckles named Knuckles, who looks after a giant gem named the Master Emerald after Dr. Robotnik deceives Knuckles in order to steal the Master Emerald. Sonic also rescues a pink hedgehog named Amy Rose, also named Rosie the Rascal, from robot evil Doppelganger. Wait, what's that? That used to be the story. Wait, what's the story now? Okay, let's see how this works. Sonic the Hedgehog is a franchise about a blue hedgehog who runs fast and protects the people of a city called Station Square from the evil Dr. Robotnik, also known as Eggman, who embarks on a mission to destroy Station Square to build his empire called Robotnik Land. Sonic, along with his friend Tails, embark on a journey to find magical gems they call Chaos Emeralds to put an end to Eggman's diabolical schemes. Meanwhile, Knuckles searches for pieces of the giant gem called the Master Emerald after a weird liquid monster named Chaos broke out of it. Turns out that Chaos is a guardian of the Master Emerald and befriends an echidna girl named Tikal, who used to look after the Master Emerald long ago. Chaos becomes so angry that after absorbing the negative energy of the Chaos Emeralds, it flooded Station Square. Sonic, after absorbing the positive energy of the gems, transforms into a super form to neutralize the monster and save Station Square. Eggman then discovered that his grandfather, Gerald Robotnik, created a life form named Shadow. Eggman unlocked Shadow from his suspension and founded the space colony named Ark, which he planned on using to dominate the world. Meanwhile, Sonic was arrested under the suspicion of robbing banks and destroying military equipment. Wait, what? And then escapes the military by jumping out of the helicopter with a piece of metal without a parachute. He and Shadow do battle and Sonic gets captured again, only to be busted out by Amy. Sonic and his friends heard about the Ark and planned to sabotage the weapon aboard the Ark called the Eclipse Cannon. But Gerald Robotnik had other plans as he programmed the Ark to crash into the Earth once all 7 Chaos Emeralds had been inserted inside the cannon. This is retaliation to the military after they murdered the scientists working on Project Shadow and Gerald's granddaughter, Maria Robotnik. After learning that Maria wanted people to live happy lives, Shadow teams up with Sonic to stop the Ark from crashing, but Shadow sacrifices himself in the process. Eggman uses a robot to rescue him and then proceeds to create Shadow clones. As for the real Shadow, he learns that he was created by a blood of an alien known as Black Doom. Okay, seriously, what the fuck is this? Is this actually what the franchise is about? Wait, they rebooted it? They tried to reboot it? What does that mean? What the hell is this? Okay, so Sonic the Hedgehog is about a blue hedgehog who runs fast, who has to rescue a princess with a demon inside of her that Eggman keeps capturing. There's also a white hedgehog from the future whose partner is a cat that at first was a queen from another dimension but is now from the future. Shadow fights against a darker version of himself. Shadow and Silver time travel to find out the origins of the 2 demons that were made after a failed science experiment. Sonic gets killed and at least kisses him to wake him, and there's a dark demon that sleeps in the core of the earth, and Sonic becomes a werewolf. He befriends a little furry guy named Chip because he likes ice cream. Eggman builds the empire that he always wanted, that's actually an amusement park that kills people, and then Eggman builds another amusement park that's being powered by little aliens, and then Sonic has a brother and sister that plays musical instruments. He's in love with a chipmunk girl. His birthplace is an island that celebrates Christmas every day. He used to be brown. He loves chili dogs. He has 2 mothers and his real name is Ogilvy Maurice Hedgehog. What the fuck? I think it's safe to say that this series is filled to the brim with so many continuities with a shit ton of lore world building that honestly doesn't mesh well together. And the fact that the officials can say with next to no expression that everything happens in one narrative really speaks volume of the grasp that they have with their own series, which is to say it's a slippery one. I think that it's time to manipulate the manual and actually make sense of this mess of a series so that everything is not convoluted and actually makes sense. There's no way that every game, every animation, and every comic can be crammed in one concise series. It's impossible. So here's my interpretation of the Sonic lore. To make sense of all of this, I'll break this down into 3 arcs: the classic arc, the adventure arc, and the modern arc. I'll mainly be focusing on the games since they're the ones that have the most focus. God help me, I'll begin with the classic arc. In the beginning, a blue hedgehog named Sonic battles the evil scientist Dr. Ivo. Ivo being Robotnik's first name. Dr. Ivo was a scientist that studied magical gems called Chaos Diamonds located inside of giant temples called Gaia Temples, which are scattered all around the world. While studying the diamonds, there was a terrible accident which caused Dr. Ivo to become mad with power and use the once beneficial robots to do his evil bidding and wreak havoc all over the South Islands, where Sonic lives. Sonic then battles the robots until he ventures through Dr. Ivo's base. There, he thwarts Dr. Ivo's evil schemes and ensures peace to the South Islands. But Dr. Ivo's reign of terror continues as he discovers a Gaia temple and then destroys any or all villages that oppose him. This is where a fox kid named Miles Prower comes in the story, whose life was saved by Sonic after Dr. Ivo's robots attacked any opposing residents. Miles in this lore does not have the ability to fly with his tails, but his tail can gain altitude by using a propelling device that can be used to gain some altitude or gently float down. Essentially, think of the helipad from Ratchet & Clank. Though Miles isn't as fast as Sonic, he makes up for his lack of speed with a pair of charged shoes, similar to Sonic Chaos for the Game Gear, except without being able to fly all over. Tails using gizmos works in his favor, him being a scientist and a mechanic. Together, Sonic and Miles fight out the robot siege and eventually take to the skies with Miles' plane, the Tornado. Sonic then boards Dr. Ivo's flying fortress, where he battles a robot version of himself and eventually Dr. Ivo himself. Once Dr. Ivo is defeated, Sonic escapes the flying fortress and lands safely on the Tornado. The flying fortress crashes and burns, but Dr. Ivo flees in an escape pod and discovers an island floating in the sky. He explores the island and discovers a giant gem that's being protected by an echidna that specializes in brute strength. He deceives the echidna by saying that he was being hunted by a blue hedgehog and is looking for magical gems to conquer the world. Meanwhile, Sonic and Miles, now with the nickname Tails, search for Dr. Ivo thinking that he wasn't permanently defeated, and discovered the floating island where they battle against the mischievous echidna. After the battle, it's discovered that Dr. Ivo deceived the echidna so that he could steal the giant gem, now known as the Master Emerald. Sonic, Tails, and now the echidna give chase in the Tornado until they find his launching base, where he used the Master Emerald to launch his space station, which was originally planned to be a space colony for people to live in space. The trio then fight through the dastardly core of the space station, until fighting and defeating Dr. Ivo once again. With the Master Emerald in their possession, the trio make their escape in the Tornado, where they return the Master Emerald to the floating island, now known as Angel Island, and bids the echidna farewell, which they now call him Knuckles, due to his brute punching skills. Sonic and Tails then travel the rest of the South Islands to liberate the islands of Dr. Ivo's robots. They soon discover a small planet hovering a lake. Sonic and Tails investigate the planet and discover that this tiny world came from the future, as told by a pink hedgehog named Amy Rose, a fortune teller that traveled back in time with powerful gemstones known as time stones. Amy is then captured by the robot doppelganger and Sonic and Tails pursue. Their pursuit leads them not only traveling through time to save the little planet, but also rescuing Amy from the robot doppelganger named Metal Sonic and Dr. Ivo from the future. Once he's defeated, Sonic and Tails escape the robotic base while rescuing Amy and ensure a better future for the little planet. Amy, instead of returning to her own time, decides to live in Sonic's time zone as a token of her appreciation and to hopefully rewrite the timeline. She finds herself developing feelings for Sonic due to her fortune telling and just being infatuated by his character and heroism, and doesn't go ape shit just to be with them, and also joins Sonic in his endeavors. So yeah, Amy is from the future. Eat shit, Wedgie the Hedgie. As Sonic, Tails, and Amy continue liberating the robots in the South Islands, Dr. Ivo steals the Master Emerald once again and Knuckles gives chase. The chase leads him to an island that Dr. Ivo discovered and used as a new base. There, Knuckles finds and rescues inhabitants along the way. These inhabitants include Mighty the Armadillo, Espio the Chameleon, Vector the Crocodile, and Charmy the Bee. Once they are rescued, Dr. Ivo unleashes Metal Sonic. Knuckles, along with his allies, defeat Metal Sonic and Dr. Ivo, and Sonic and Tails arrive with the Tornado and return the Master Emerald to his rightful place. So hopefully the lore so far has been concise. Sonic fights evil robots along with the genius Two-Tailed Fox who he befriends, and a kidnap that punches hard, and a pink hedgehog girl that came from the future who develops feelings for Sonic and fights for a better future. Sacrifices had to be made so the Chaos Rings and Super Diamonds don't appear in this lore. The Gaia Temples are introduced ahead this time, so along the way they'll be put for better use. So far, the classic arc is simply Dr. Evil being evil with whatever scheme he has in mind. The adventure arc is where stakes increase and background stories are revealed. Time passed after Dr. Evil's failed attempt to steal the Master Emerald, and he directed his attention to the Gaia temples. During his travels, he encountered an ancient shrine located in the Mystic Ruins. There, he learned about an ancient beast that was said to have wiped out an entire civilization. It was after that Dr. Evil devised a plan to manipulate the power of the mythical gems known as Chaos Diamonds. With one Chaos Diamond in his possession, his new plan was set in motion. Later that night, Knuckles was guarding the Master Emerald, and suddenly, the giant gem shatters and out comes a watery monster that steals some of the shards and flees. Knuckles pursues in hopes of finding them. Meanwhile, Sonic was running through the streets of Station Square until he hears police sirens and follows. He soon discovered that the police were pursuing the water monster, which they tried to shoot down, but was proven ineffective. Sonic, with Knuckles' help, defeats the monster, but the monster flees, only for Dr. Evil to subdue the creature with the Chaos Diamond. With Sonic and Knuckles confused, the two decide to work together to find out more about the situation. Sonic visits Tails' workshop only to find out that he was testing his new prototype plane above the Emerald Coast. He finds Tails' prototype plane crash on the shore and helps him. Turns out that Tails modified his plane so that he could use a new power source, which happens to be a Chaos Diamond. As the two venture through Windy Valley to return to Tails' workshop, Dr. Evil ambushes them with the water monster named Chaos and steals the Chaos Diamond and used it on Chaos. Both Dr. Evil and Chaos retreat to their new flying fortress, the Carrier. No, it doesn't carry eggs, and Sonic and Tails follow them with the tornado. Meanwhile, Knuckles was searching through the ancient ruins for Master Emerald pieces. While searching, he finds a mural of a terrifying monster and hears a voice that says, "The servers are the 7 Chaos." With this in mind, he continues his search for the Master Emerald pieces. Sonic and Tails pursue the Carrier. During the fight, Tails' plane gets shot down and crashes in the Emerald Coast area, so Sonic no longer lands head first into sand. While Tails tends to repairs, Sonic goes to find Knuckles for help, until he finds Amy. She's been trying to find Sonic after the Carrier was seen flying over the city. Sonic agrees to have Amy help him, and Amy reveals that she found a Master Emerald piece. As the two return to Tails, Amy gets abducted by a strange robot. Now Sonic and Tails, with the tornado repaired, pursue the Carrier again, this time with Knuckles after discovering that he's been searching for emerald pieces in mountainous areas, such as Red Mountain and Ice Cap. The trio successfully board the Carrier and split up. Knuckles continues to search for more emerald pieces in the sky deck, and Sonic and Tails proceed to rescue Amy in a prison located in the Carrier's hot shelter. Meanwhile, Amy was in prison with her emerald piece taken, and Sonic and Tails find and rescue her. As everyone returns to the tornado, they soon find Dr. Evil along with the mutated Chaos. They manage to fight it off, and Dr. Evil retreats in the Carrier to launch a massive missile at the city. The heroes board the tornado and manage to shoot down the missile, but not completely. They soon find one of Dr. Evil's strange robots trying to reach the missile, which is the very same robot that captured Amy. The robot rocketed towards the missile, so Sonic devised a plan. Since the missile is the goal, Sonic will run through the speed highway and reach the missile first to disarm it. As soon as he reaches the missile, Sonic then encounters the robot that captured Amy. Sonic destroys it and Tails locates and disarms the missile by simply cutting a wire. Soon after, the heroes see the Carrier above the city. They board the tornado once more and follow the Carrier to its destination, Dr. Evil's base. They soon split up into two groups. Amy helps Knuckles continue his search for the other emerald pieces, and Sonic and Tails find Dr. Evil in order to defeat him. Amy and Knuckles battle Chaos once more, this time more mutated because of the emerald pieces, and Tails and Sonic find Dr. Evil in his new battle mech. The two sides prevail in their objectives, and Knuckles returns to Angel Island to restore the Master Emerald. Tails finds the 2 Chaos Diamonds, but they lost their power. Turns out that Chaos absorbed their power and used them to mutate once more. This time, Chaos had its sights on Station Square. The heroes could only see the devastation that Chaos had brought, and Dr. Evil uses his Carrier to subdue the monster, but his efforts, along with the military, were proven to be for naught. The heroes were greeted by an Echidna girl named Tikal, where she explains about Chaos, her civilization, and the meaning behind the words, "The servers are the 7 Chaos." Though Chaos only has 2 diamonds, which were enough to flood the city, should Chaos have all 7, it would have flooded the entire planet. The once powerless Chaos Diamonds begin to glow and granted Sonic Super Saiyan form? Yeah, let's go with that. With this form, Sonic was able to tame the beast and free it from all his anger. With Chaos neutral again, both it and Tikal return to Wednesday King, along with the Emerald Shards that Knuckles had. The people then start rebuilding the wrecked city, ending Adventure 1. Whew! That was a mouthful. So let's break down the story so far. Unlike the original Sonic Adventure, the areas were used only once in the story, so no need to view certain plot lines more than once due to different perspectives in this lore. I think that having a single storyline in this new lore works better in the sense that it reduces the monotony. Also, having the main characters split up to accomplish certain objectives works as well so that each character has a contribution to something greater. Even though in the original adventure, each character does accomplish their own objective, whether it's restoring the Master Emerald, defeating the villain with the utmost courage, or trying to become more independent. Speaking of character growth, although the characters don't go through the same character arc in this new lore, I think having them more involved than usual is a nice change, especially when they're paired with someone. Big and Gamma are nowhere to be seen in this lore, and even though having Gamma would have been a nice addition, I feel that excluding Gamma in the E-Series robots as a whole is more beneficial. Don't get me wrong, I still think that Gamma is a beloved character with a great storyline, but all that the E-Series robots do is hunt for a frog and are scrapped afterwards due to their failure. Also, why just build 4 E-Series robots when Eggman in the original lore could have just made
a million of these?
This is the same villain that has so many badniks around the islands, yet he can only build 4 E-Series robots. 5 if you count Omega. Well, 6 if you count Zeta. Big not being present in this lore honestly doesn't make much of a difference. In fact, Big as a whole just doesn't do anything. Not just in Sonic Adventure, but at all. I mean, sure he provides the muscle on several occasions, but as a character, absolutely nothing. The bird, named Lily in Sonic X, just flies out of nowhere and just so happens to have a picture of her family and a pendant along with a Chaos Diamond. The pendant is never explained. As much as I appreciated Gamma in the original adventure, I believe it was the bird that set everything in motion in terms of Gamma's story. Because how exactly can any of the E-Series robots develop their own feelings and opinions, unless they're similar to the Reploids from the Mega Man X series? Plus, having Knuckles discover the Merle instead of Sonic is more beneficial, as I found this more impactful in the long run. After all, this is the introduction of discovering the Echidna civilization. Also, Knuckles doesn't get deceived into fighting Sonic. Thank God. I hope that I managed to make this story as engaging and interesting as possible. Adventure 1 was copacetic when it came to storytelling in the Sonic series, but I think it could have been better. Even though Sonic X improved the story greatly, I still think it could have filled in more gaps, such as the pendant Lily had or how the hell the egg carrier lost altitude. The way how the original game set up the multiple storylines was interesting, but I think that a single storyline where you can switch throughout characters during the progression of the story is an improvement of the pacing, which I think is something Sonic Adventure 2 does well. Speaking of Sonic Adventure 2, the story in that game is the most complicated story I've ever seen. Even after trying to make sense of it all by reading the synopsis in the Sonic News Network, I was confused even further. Joe Robotnik discovering the Echidna tribe and the Gizoids and creating the artificial chaos, Joe reprogramming the Ark to crash into the Earth, the Eclipse Cannon, Sonic getting arrested after saving everyone, the fake Chaos Diamond, Chaos Control just being an ability anyone can use, Chaos Diamonds in national museums, Rouge not saying shit to Gun in order to maintain cover while breaking into the vault to steal the Chaos Diamonds. It's all a mess. After looking into both Adventure 2's plot and the Shadow Arc of Sonic X, let's see how my interpretation of the new lore goes. And just to get this out there, the Black Gown's art will not be incorporated in this lore because the plot point is simply retarded and unnecessary. After the departure of Chaos and Tikal, the people continued to rebuild the main streets of Station Square, and Gun, the guardian unit of nations, continued to liberate the world of Dr. Ivo's threats. Dr. Ivo retreats to his base in the desert after the destruction of the carrier in order to find out more about Gun if he were to continue his mission of world domination. He hacks into the government's computer to discover their new battle robots and a diary that belonged to his grandfather, Gerald. Dr. Ivo discovered about Project Shadow, a science project that would be used to discover a vaccine for his granddaughter, Maria. This project was being executed in the space colony Ark, a space colony that would be used for space development and travel. The project involved test subjects such as lizards, hedgehogs, and other rodents. The vaccine that was being produced mutated the test subjects, which then created a new life form that was later named the bio-lizard, which was sealed away into a center of the Ark in order to study it further. Another test subject was created, but this one used a less potent version of the vaccine. This mutation turned out to be a new type of life form called Shadow. In order to sustain the life form, a Chaos Diamond was used to suspend the creature while increasing its physical and mental capabilities. When Shadow was fully stable, it was unleashed as a new life form titled the Ultimate Life Form. With a newly developed vaccine, Gerald was ready to treat his granddaughter until Gunn sent their soldiers to raise the facility and halt production of Project Shadow due to suspicion of Gerald in creating bioweapons. The scientists and Gerald were all incarcerated, and Maria ran with Shadow to escape. Maria sealed Shadow into a capsule, and as she was about to pull the lever to send him away, a gun soldier appears and shoots her as she pulls the lever to release Shadow. The capsule crashes into the earth and is soon discovered by Gunn. With Gerald arrested, Gunn forced him to finish his research of the Ark by creating schematics for a weapon capable of defending the Ark. This would eventually be known as the Eclipse Cannon. This would use the power of the Chaos Diamonds to reach its full potential. Once Dr. Ivo learned the truth, he vowed to release Shadow and take control of the Ark by infiltrating where Shadow was being held. Prison Island. Dr. Ivo makes his way to the sealing chamber through the iron gate where Shadow was being suspended and released by inputting a password. That password was the name of Gerald's late granddaughter, Maria. Shadow is then released and pledges his allegiance to Dr. Ivo and to help him reach the Ark. They use the space shuttle to enter the Ark, where Shadow explains how to dominate the world with this device. Meanwhile, news of Dr. Ivo's infiltration reaches to the government and sends a spy to investigate. This is where Rouge the Bat comes in. Her objective is to discover what Dr. Ivo's been planning and gather any information she can. To do this, she infiltrates Dr. Ivo's desert base's quarters and discovers Gerald's diary and Gunn's battle robot data in his database. This is where she introduces herself to Dr. Ivo and Shadow via using the desert base's communications, because just being in the Ark is kinda weird. She joins the two in their mission to use the Ark as a weapon for world domination. Although Dr. Ivo accepts Rouge and his team, he catches on to what she's really after. The first objective is obtaining Chaos Diamonds. This was done by taking the one from a Gaia temple in the desert. I think you know which one. Afterwards, Gunn pursues Shadow to the city, where they encounter him and try to subdue him in the Radical Highway. Shadow loses the military pursuit where he encounters Sonic. Finally! The main character is in the story, and he's not arrested. This is an improvement. As the two fought, Shadow escapes and Sonic searches for him until Dr. Ivo's robots were seen throughout the city. As Sonic liberates the city of these robots, Amy informs Sonic of Dr. Ivo's infiltration of Prison Island, according to the broadcast. Meanwhile, Dr. Ivo plans an attack on Prison Island to eliminate the entire island and their battle operations. To do this, Shadow would have to set a detonator in the prison's ammunition depot through the prison lane, while Rouge steals weapon data from the security hall. This is a cover-up on her part, so she informs Gunn about her efforts to maintain cover. I want to be clear on that so that that stupid plot point of Rouge not saying anything to Gunn never happens again. On the day of the planned assault, Dr. Ivo creates a diversion on the front lines in the weapons bed while Shadow and Rouge carry out their assignments in the inside. Sonic, Tails, and Amy land on the island aboard the tornado and they witness the carnage. Sonic storms the metal harbor to find Shadow while Tails and Amy battle against Dr. Ivo in the tornado. As Rouge escapes the prison with the info, Shadow sets the detonator to 10 minutes. Once completed, Shadow escaped to the forest, where he meets Sonic and battles him once again. As the two fought, Dr. Ivo contacts Shadow to escape the island before the detonator reaches zero. Sonic escapes through the green forest and returns to the tornado with Tails and Amy, while Shadow boards the space shuttle along with Dr. Ivo and Rouge back to the desert base. As Dr. Ivo and his team return to base, Dr. Ivo inserts Gunn battle data into his database in order to use Gunn's data against them. Meanwhile, Amy informs Sonic and Tails of a broadcast she saw the day before. It involved a Chaos Diamond being stolen from a Gaia temple in the desert area, so the heroes investigate the desert and find Dr. Ivo's base. There, the team infiltrate the hidden base to find Dr. Ivo, only to encounter a golem robot which Sonic defeats. During this battle, Dr. Ivo and team take the space shuttle back to the Ark to ready the Eclipse Cannon. Sonic and fans soon discovered the database, where they learned about the Ark. In order to reach the Ark, they would need a space shuttle of their own. This is where the heroes ventured to the space bureau known as Meteor Tech, a space development facility that created the Ark long ago. They allowed Sonic and friends to use the space shuttle to board the Ark and stop Dr. Ivo in his plans. Actually, before I continue, I need to explain the backstory on Meteor Tech. Meteor Tech is a weapon manufacturing and security company founded and owned by Eggman, but this was a means to an end to carry out his plan to create Eggman Land. Eggman, a scientific villain, is the owner of a weapon manufacturing and security company, yet people didn't know who the owner of Meteor Tech was. You see the problem here. Also, you'd think with the name Meteor Tech that the company would be space related. Imagine if this company was like the Sonic version of NASA. That sounded weird out loud. Back on topic. Once inside, the team split up. Sonic will retrieve the Chaos Diamond from the Eclipse Cannon while Tails and Amy located the main power frame and disable it, thus shutting down the arc. Sonic retrieves the Chaos Diamond from the Eclipse Cannon, only to encounter Rouge, who planned on stealing the Chaos Diamond as well. After a brief introduction, Rouge entrusts Sonic to hold on to it once the arc incident reaches its conclusion, and Sonic returns to Tails and Amy. While on his way, he received the transmission from Tails saying that he encountered Dr. Ivo in the Eternal Engine. Meanwhile, Shadow encounters Rouge and realizes who she really is. A spy from the government. Rouge reveals that it was her mission from the beginning to gather information on Dr. Ivo's operations. Dr. Ivo then calls Shadow to inform him that Sonic was on his way to the Ark's power frame. Shadow arrives just in time to stop Sonic and the two battle once again. Shadow defeats Sonic and retrieves the Chaos Diamond while Tails and Amy battle and defeat Dr. Ivo. Before Tails can power down the power frame, Shadow inserts the Chaos Diamond again. But this time, a timer was displayed. Shadow informs Dr. Ivo of this and informs him what's happening. He recalls Gerald's diary and how he programmed the Eclipse Cannon. Once the Chaos Diamond was inserted, a countdown would commence. Once the countdown reaches 0, the cannon will reach full capacity and fire, destroying the world. To prevent this, Sonic and his friends, along with Dr. Ivo and Rouge, ventured to the cannon's core to prevent the Eclipse Cannon from firing. Shadow, however, did not assist due to him believing that people are not worth saving. Amy convinces Shadow to save everyone because despite how cruel people can be, life is precious and living at their best is proof that they were alive. Shadow then recalls Maria's last words and assists the others to stop the arc. Once everyone reaches the core, the Bio-Lizard appears to stop them, but Sonic and Shadow teamed up to defeat the creature. However, in order to defeat it completely, Shadow used every ounce of his chaos energy to subdue the creature, but this would cause an explosion that would destroy the core of the arc. Everyone escapes via a shuttle, but Dr. Ivo had other plans as he used his shuttle to escape by his lonesome. Once the explosion subsided, everyone was concerned about Shadow and the Chaos Diamond, while Dr. Ivo returned to his base to plot his next scheme. Okay, that was quite a mouthful, so let's compare this lore with the original Adventure 2. First off, Sonic does not get arrested since in this lore, the military are colorblind and actually fights the enemy. Knuckles doesn't appear in this lore because he wouldn't be much of a contribution to the story. For him, it's collecting Master Emerald pieces because he doesn't know how to protect the giant gem. Rouge makes a smart decision to inform Gun what she's doing. Amy is put to better use, King Boom Boo doesn't appear because why the fuck was that a thing, and the space rocket doesn't appear in the base. Instead, it appears where it should be, a space bureau. Where space stuff happens. The fake diamond is also not a thing, nor is chaos control, because I want chaos control to mean something greater than just something anyone can do, and the fake diamond honestly doesn't make any sense either. Eggman, or Ivo in this case, plans ahead and thinks for once. The backstory behind the arc is cleaned up so it's not a mind-boggling mess, and the Bio-Lizard doesn't fuse with the Eclipse Cannon because once again, chaos control in the canonical lore is just a tool. With this lore I created, everyone is treated as it should be and not dumbed down to making bad decisions. Though the original Adventure 2's story was bold, the writing left nothing but a sour and bitter taste. In the end, I made it so that Shadow's fate would be left undetermined instead of just him being flat out killed. I also want the art to be more relevant to this lore so that it isn't just a weapon that anyone can use to blow up parts of the world. I honestly wanted this story to have actual logic because as I was writing this, I figured out why Adventure 2's story was poorly written. It lacked logic, and that's why I was so frustrated with the characters making so many bad decisions to the point where I was constantly calling them out on their bullshit. This was a big one, and hopefully this will be the only big one. In the original series, Shadow's death was retconned because he became a popular character, and when Sonic Team considered Adventure 3, they instead renamed the game Heroes to avoid pressuring newcomers from playing the last two Adventure games. However, I will give Heroes this. It at least offered Metal Sonic a chance to be the bigger bad. But for the sake of this lore, I believe the next step in the Adventure arc is the Advanced series. Although the Advanced series has little story to tell, I believe it's still enough to be an addition to the Adventure arc as a whole. Not just for this lore, but just for Sonic overall. For this, I'll only be incorporating the plots from Advanced 2 and 3. Kind of. Advance 1 follows the classic setup of the story. Eggman traps animals and robots Sonic and friends must save, and I get an idea of how to incorporate Emerald into this lore so that way he's not a one and done. After the supposed shutdown of the Space Colony arc, Dr. Ivo directs his attention to capture Sonic's friends in order to ensure his victory. Sonic takes notice of this and sets out to rescue them. Along the way, he rescues a rabbit girl named Cream, who was also captured to be a part of Dr. Ivo's new breed of battle robots. She teams up with Sonic to find the rest of his friends and hopes to find her mother, Vanilla. After rescuing everyone, Dr. Ivo captures Vanilla again and retreats back to his base to use her for his experiments. The heroes make their way there, only to find out that Dr. Ivo has taken over Area 53, an astronomical research facility branch of the Meteor Tech dedicated to spatial travel and studies. Dr. Ivo planned on using Area 53 as a separate base to ensure world domination. As the heroes make their way to Area 53, they encounter Dr. Ivo and his battle robot being powered by Cream's mother, Vanilla. Once the heroes defeat Dr. Ivo, they rescue Vanilla. This time not by falling to their deaths. And Dr. Ivo escapes. As he escapes, he returns to his base to upload data based on Sonic's fighting abilities. The robot then utters the words, "Lifeform data successfully copied." Sound familiar?
All lifeform data successfully copied.
Moving on to Advance 3. With the Chaos Diamond in possession, Dr. Ivo began to execute his new plan. To capture the Master Emerald and use it as a source of power for his new empire. As Sonic and his friends continue their efforts to rid the world of Dr. Ivo's machines, they encounter Emerald and battle against him in different locations. Eventually, they discover that Angel Island has fallen. Dr. Ivo was attempting to steal the Master Emerald and use it for his own purposes. As Sonic and his friends defeat Dr. Ivo, Emerald uses the power of the Master Emerald to become powerful. With the power of the Chaos Diamond, both Sonic and Dr. Ivo combine their efforts to defeat the powerful Emerald. Once neutralized, Emerald reverted to his old form and the Master Emerald returns to Angel Island, but Dr. Ivo retreats. Later, Tails repels Emerald and becomes friendly to others. Cream, with her polite and compassionate nature, teaches Emerald how to be more friendly and fight for peace. Due to this, Emerald takes a liking to Cream and lives with her, becoming a brother figure in the process. Originally, Area 53 was just a spot in space where the final battle against Eggman took place in Advance 2. But in this lore, Area 53 is a space facility that is dedicated to the astronomical research for Meteor Tech's efforts of spatial travel. Eggman in Advance 3 uses chaos control to divide the world into separate parts of reality in order to create his empire. I found that to be a bit wacky of some sorts, so I thought about making it so that it focuses on Eggman being a diabolical tyrant. In addition, this sword takes the copying plot point from Heroes and is incorporated into Emerald. He is a copying robot after all. Instead of being some robot that Eggman and Joe Robotnik found by sheer coincidence, Emerald in this lore was created to be the ultimate robot by simply copying the abilities of Sonic and his friends. Dr. Ivo captured Sonic's friends so that he could have Emerald copy them and to become stronger, and once he tapped into the Master Emerald's power, he became, shall I say, Maverick. I also think that Sonic and Dr. Ivo, or Eggman in general, teaming up to beat the bigger bad is also a nice take in the lore. Despite their reasonings for fighting each other, them teaming up is a nice change of pace. With this lore incorporated, this will bring the adventure arc to a close. I think up until this point, the characters were put to better use, despite some of them taking the back seat a few times. If I didn't have a use for them, then I simply don't add them to the story and use them for later. So far in this arc, I hope to give the characters a healthy amount of time in the story. With stakes raised in this arc, the modern arc will focus more on the world of Mobius and everything around it. To begin this arc, I want to look at Sonic Chronicles The Dark Brotherhood, as I believe that continuing the Echidna lore is the best entry to start. For this lore, most of the Chronicles story remains the same, except that Amy doesn't go off about her imaginary lover. Eggman, or Dr. Ivo in this case, isn't left behind so he can't rebuild his city. Imperator X has better motivations to rebuild the Echidna tribe. The Gizzoids and Shadow are not involved in this lore, except for Emerald since he's along for the ride. Vector joins the crew and is involved in this story since he only appears in Central City as a detective for Gun in the original Chronicles, and the Chaos Diamonds don't play their role as the MacGuffins that Sonic and his friends have to collect. Instead, they only need one to reach the Twilight Cage, because the Chaos Diamond and the Master Emerald are attracted to one another. The servers are the 7 Chaos after all. Imperator X also shares insight of how Nocturne was banished to the Twilight Cage. The Master Emerald banished Nocturne to a separate part of space called the Twilight Cage. One could say that Chaos itself was the one to banish Nocturne, since it is the guardian of the Master Emerald from within. Imperator X sought the prosperity of his people, even if it meant waging war against others. Once the fighting concluded, the heroes returned home, but Dr. Ivo had other plans as he used a separate ship from within Nocturne to escape. I'll take this over him rebuilding his entire city. So before I move on with the modern arc, there's something I wanted to explain about Chronicles' story, specifically between Knuckles and Shade. So for those who don't know, Shade the Echidna only appeared in this game because after some dumb legal issues with Kim Penders, the author, or I guess used to be author, of the Son of the Hedgehog Archie comic, saying that the Dark Brotherhood from Sonic Chronicles was a ripoff of the Dark Legion from the comics. Thus, that would mean that Shade would not appear in any more Sonic games. However, I would like to think that Shade would be a staple in the overall series, not for this lore, but in the actual series as a whole, because I do believe that after the conclusion of this journey, Knuckles would take to heart everything that happened in regards to the Echidna civilization on his side and both Shade's side, and since Shade wasn't a big fan of what Emperor X was after, I think that Knuckles and Shade being the two echidnas on Platymobius would be beneficial, because that would mean that Knuckles would get to see a side of Shade's echidna tribe that he'd never seen before or just flat out didn't know about. And as for Shade, she would be able to inherit everything that happened on Knuckles' side, and also we get to learn more about Chaos and Tikal and the Master Emerald, and Knuckles guarding the Master Emerald this entire time. And I think that both of these two characters would hit it off just fine. I mean, they seem to over the course of the game, and I also wouldn't mind the fact that if these two were officially a couple. I mean, I wouldn't say that Knuckles is a romantic type, but I think there's a thought that's worth exploring. Seeing that Knuckles is a bit of a toughie, and he does have some sort of intimacy with Rouge, but they never really built upon that. And I don't know if Rouge and Knuckles would ever be like that close, but I do see Rouge close to Shadow, especially in Sonic 06 after Omega guns down Mephiles. But I just wanted to include Shade in this because honestly it was a waste for her to not be in any more Sonic games, all because Ken Penders said that he Chronicles ripped off the Archie comics with the Dark Brotherhood, which honestly is just stupid in its own way, because the Dark Brotherhood looks absolutely nothing like the Dark Legion. I don't know why he would think that, or nor just bring it up, nor would that warrant a lawsuit. Honestly, it's stupid, it's dumb, and I honestly don't like Kim Penders anyway after what the fuck he did with Sally in the comics, so yeah, fuck him. But no, I honestly think that Shade would have been a staple in this lore, especially when she could learn some things from Knuckles and vice versa. So I like to think that she's a staple, but I know that she wouldn't play much of a big role like Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, or probably Cream in this lore anyway. But it's just nice to have her around. So I consider her like a fan favorite character, no different than Emerald, no different than Blaze, or any other popular characters out there. So I just wanted to get that out there. This was not written in the script, but I just wanted to get this point in there because I honestly do see potential in Shade, and it sucks that she wasn't considered a staple in the overall series. Speaking of Dr. Ivo rebuilding, he launches his new armada to locate the other Gaia temples. During his crusade, he discovers more about the Gaia temples and how the temples themselves are used to not only keep the world in balance, but to keep a creature known as Dark Gaia at bay. With Gun's help, Sonic manages to hunt the Doctor down and nearly sabotage his entire operations. I say nearly because Dr. Ivo was successful in bringing power back to the Ark and uses the Eclipse Cannon to break the planet into 7 segments. Once the planet is shattered, dark energy begins to flow around the world. This is where Dark Gaia comes into play and saps the energy from the Chaos Diamonds to fully awaken. As Dr. Ivo continues his search for the Gaia Temples, Sonic tends to do the same. With Tails' help, Sonic manages to locate the Gaia Temples and brings power back to the Chaos Diamonds. Meanwhile, Dr. Ivo manages to use the power of Dark Gaia to create a new base of operations. This results in him creating the Crimson Carnival, also named Eggman Land and Unleashed, where the final Gaia Temple was located. This is also where the rest of Unleashed's story plays out, except that Chip doesn't appear in the story. at all. The hedge wolf never happens, but the Gaia temples do assemble into a giant temple golem. Sonic doesn't fall to the earth and crack his skull open, and Amy also has no role to play in this. It's just Sonic, Tails, and Dr. Ivo from beginning to end, with the assistance of Gun, to some extent. Easy and straightforward. After the world's restoration and the defeat of Dark Gaia, space development was in full swing, and the Space Bureau discovered new planets, which they hoped would be used to be beneficial to their cause. Dr. Ivo uses this opportunity to capture these worlds and enslave their inhabitants, the Wisps. In short, this is the story of colors, except Eggman and Isor, or Dr. Ivo, doesn't create some interstellar amusement park, but instead attempts to capture the Wisps and use their energy to create more battle robots. Side note here, what's up with Eggman creating amusement parks over the years? Sonic goes through all sorts of robotic areas such as Scrap Brain, Metropolis, and Metal Madness, but ever since Unleashed, Eggman's vision of an empire is some kind of carnival attraction. First was the Crimson Carnival, then it's the Interstellar Amusement Park. Honorable mention, Circus Park. What's next? Carnival?
What was that all about?
And now for the big one, something that will put almost every character into use. It's time for the final saga of the modern arc, and I honestly can't think of a better saga than the Meteorite Saga, also known as Season 3 of Sonic X. The story this time around remains relatively the same, but this time, Chris makes no appearances, Knuckles doesn't get deceived, Rouge doesn't go crazy for looking for Chaos Diamonds, Emerald and Shade have minor roles to play in this lore, but them tagging along is a pleasure, and also, I want to clarify something. Cosmo's people, known as Cedrians, have a transformation ability that is used according to their gender. Male Cedrians have the ability to use what is called Mover Mode, which allows them to grow into a giant, sort of like a kaiju. Females, however, transform into trees and produce seeds, in this case, their children. After transforming, Eartha gave birth to Cosmo in order to produce a savior of the universe. Cosmo uses this method to bind Dark Oak so that Tails can use the Sonic Driver, Sonic Power Cannon and Turbo Force dub, to deliver the final blow, killing Cosmo in the process. Super Sonic and Super Shadow use something called Chaos Regeneration, a power used in an attempt to restore Cosmo. This results in Cosmo reverting to a seed, which Sonic gave to Tails. Now let's do some cleanup real quick, and to do this, I want to bring the Chaos Diamonds and the Master Emerald into the picture. In the beginning, everything in the Meteorite Saga just happens. The first scene that occurs is Super Sonic battling against Dark Oak and his army. How this occurred and when Sonic acquired the diamonds is never clarified. For this lore, the Meteorites attack Mobius in various locations, including the Space Bureau. Due to this, Sonic and his friends defend both the Master Emerald and the Chaos Diamonds. As the diamonds resonate with Sonic, he acquires his super form to battle against the Meteorites, and thus, the Meteorite Saga kicks off. In addition to this lore, Sonic is referred to as some legendary hero. The Meteorites don't know the Chaos Diamonds right away, but later on they start to catch on. Most likely because of how Dark Oak was using Cosmo to eavesdrop due to her having a communicator in her brain. As for the Chaotix, that's where things get tricky. Originally, Chris's family transported Chris's belongings in a ship of all things through the portal used to transport Sonic and his friends back to Mobius as somewhat of a memento from Chris's parents. Vanilla hired the Chaotix to deliver Chris's belongings to him, thus explains how the Chaotix get involved in the story. For this lore, since the Chaotix formed the detective agency with Gun, they're sent on a mission to collect intel on the Meteorite and of course Dr. Ivo. With a ship bestowed from Gun, the Chaotix embark on their mission. I also think that Vector lying about Vanilla bringing Cream back and then abducting Cream shouldn't happen, although it's nice to see Cosmo's dodging skills. Besides that, the Chaotix play out their role in the story similar to the third season of Sonic X, for the most part. Now to go back to the Master Emerald in the final battle. The Master Emerald was used to create an energy blast to defeat Dark Oak and his cohorts, all while suppressing the power of the Chaos Diamonds, shattering in the process. If you remember the Adventure 1 plot, either in this or the other, then congratulations, because now you're really in for it. The Master Emerald shatters and out comes Tikal and Chaos. If you recall, Tikal and Chaos sealed themselves in the Master Emerald as spirits. With them in this lore, they assist Sonic and Shadow in defeating Dark Oak, but Dark Oak uses a gravitational force to basically try to destroy the universe with a powerful explosion. This is where the rest of the original story comes into play. Cosmo uses her mover mode to turn into a tree to give Tails the opportunity he needs to end the battle. Afterwards, Tikal and Chaos' spirits grant Super Sonic and Super Shadow the energy they need to revive Cosmo with Chaos regeneration. And the rest, you know. But thanks to the extra Chaos energy, it not only would bring Cosmo back in due time, but she might also be able to use Chaos abilities as well, though I wouldn't say she would have Shadow's abilities. So before I continue, I just want to explain a little something that I've discovered about Tikal and Chaos. So there's been a little bit of a debate from what I've been seeing whether or not Tikal and Chaos either passed on via, to the afterlife or if they did return as spirits into the Master Emerald, because Chaos does reappear in the series in Sonic Battle, but as for Tikal, I think that remains a mystery. So my original intent was to have Tikal and Chaos aid Super Sonic and Super Shadow against the final battle in Season 3 of Sonic X, so that way I can put them to good use. However, if it is true that they did pass on, then that would mean that it would just be Super Sonic and Super Shadow from beginning to end, with Chaos regeneration to wrap things up. So I actually would like to hear from other people as well. Do you think that Tikal and Chaos should either pass on, or should they be spirits of the Master Emerald? Personally, I would like to think that they were spirits, because to me, well, in the beginning they were spirits after the tragedy that befell the Echidna tribe. So I would have thought that, yeah, they did become spirits of the Master Emerald once again. But if they passed on, then that's also understandable. So this could go down in two ways. Either they're spirits of the Master Emerald and they aid in the final battle, or they passed on after the events of Adventure 1 and the battle would just go on normally. So I would like to think that they are spirits of the Master Emerald, because it does shatter and both of them do escape. But in order to get their, in order for the Master Emerald to get his energy back, I would have thought that Tikal and Chaos in spirit form would do anything they could to bring the Master Emerald back to its original state. I mean, I don't know how Master Emerald would just come back to life anyway after being shattered into, pieces. But yeah, it's something that I just thought of, but I didn't want to shoehorn both of them in if they did pass on. So yeah, for me, I rather have them as spirits as the Master Emerald, but if they did pass on, then that's understandable as well. So I'd like to hear from you guys how you feel about this topic. With all this said and done, I hereby bring the modern arc to a close. I hope I was able to not only make good use of the characters, but to also to tweak the story so it's richer and in-depth than before. Now for the other entries. For the classic arc, I like to add the plot of Sonic Triple Trouble. Instead of the usual gig with Sonic, Tails, and everyone else, I think having Mighty the Armadillo and Ray the Flying Squirrel be the protagonist is more fitting. Fang the Weasel steals a Chaos Diamond and Mighty and Ray track him down. This attracts the attention of Dr. Ivo and he enters the fray. The story is kept simple, that's more of a side story. For the modern arc, Sonic Rush. For this lore, the plot remains the same for the original game, but instead of Eggman Nega, I think his name should be Dr. Ovi, since Eggman Nega never had a real name. The same plot from Rush Adventures also remains the same, but Marine's weird bubble ability doesn't happen. As it's in the diatribe, it's never properly explained. As for the Riders series, I think the story needs an overhaul. For this lore, a hoverboard Grand Prix is held as Sonic and their friends enter. They also encounter some strangers known as the Babylon Rogues, who are looking for the Key of Babylon. During the Grand Prix, everyone finds out that the grand prize is a strange relic, which the Babylon Rogues recognize is the Key of Babylon. It begins to resonate with the relic that the Rogues have. the Ark of the Cosmos, which is used to locate Babylon Garden, which was originally a spaceship but is now a temple lost in time. Inside the temple, they discover another Ark of the Cosmos, but there are others still out there. As the Babylon Rose go their separate ways, Jet vows to defeat Sonic in the next Grand Prix. This is where I use a tactic for better storytelling: trimming fat. Dr. Ivo doesn't appear in this story because I honestly don't think his involvement would provide much purpose. Jet doesn't cheat, the crew don't look for Chaos Diamonds with a Dragon Ball radar for no reason, and the Ark of the Cosmos are introduced early. Moving on to Zero Gravity. Most of the plot remains intact, except that there's a major change. Meteor Tech isn't owned by Eggman, and since Meteor Tech is already established in this lore, it's safe to assume that he eventually took over Meteor Tech via taking over Meteor Tech's Signal Tower, Crimson Tower, after the robots went berserk in order to build his empire. So for this lore, Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Knuckles, CD, and Knuckles Chaotix are in the classic arc, where battles are waged in the South Islands. Amy comes from the future, and Dr. Ivo searches for power resources for his efforts. In the Adventure arc, the lore of the Echidna clan is revealed. Project Shadow, which is a project to discover a new medical treatment. The Advanced series introduced with Cream and Vanilla, and Amrell, who was created by Dr. Ivo to battle against Sonic and his friends by copying their abilities. And the modern arc focuses outside of Planet Mobius, where new worlds are discovered, the Gaia Temples become a major plot point, and the Meteor Saga utilizes all the characters to the fullest. With all this said, there were a lot of things said, but there were a lot of cuts. Characters such as Silver, E-Series robots, and even other scenarios such as Soliana and the Lost Hex do not appear in this lore because I honestly think they serve no purpose. Time resets in the events of Sonic 06, and the writing in 06 is absolute garbage. The Deadly Six and the Lost Hex have no background story, so they're out. The storybook series is pointless filler, so that's out. And the less that's said about Sonic 4, the better. This new lore not only makes the characters and world building not only richer, but also makes more sense. With the Echidna lore revamped and space development being a growing part of the story, I think this lore fixes a lot of problems that the Sonic series we know has. Of course, if you have any criticisms or feedback, please list them in the comment section in a respectful manner. With all this said and done, this is how I rewrote the lore of Sonic the Hedgehog. One more addition to this lore: Knuckles doesn't wear brick shoes. What the hell was this design choice?